The goldenrods, you know, obviously they grow so abundantly and they are native. All the goldenrods are very strong in this part of the world. And they really have a lot to offer us. And I know that a lot of people have a hard time with goldenrod because it shows up as a weed and it will grow into cropland when it goes fallow and doesn't make good hay and this type of thing. But it does make a pretty important food and medicine for people and insects and animals and the earth. So I always like to let it grow where I can, and I appreciate that this patch is being allowed to grow here at the edge of this garden bed, and it's definitely bringing a lot of pollinators into the garden. The goldenrod is just this carrier of sunlight. It gathers the sunlight all through the spring and summer and then bursts into bloom in late summer and carries this light over all the way until we get into the beginning of fall. I think of it as the sunset herb. It's like the sunset of the season. And it carries a lot of that warmth in its medicine. This is a really nice, deeply warming herb. And one of the things I really like to do with this one, kind of like with the evening primrose, is I pick some of the flowering tops with the leaves growing close to the open flowers and chop them up and put them in a jar and pour oil over them and let that oil sit and infuse in the sunlight for about a month. And that is a really warming anti-inflammatory rub. It's very nice to rub over the core, over the kidneys and the adrenals when you're kind of exhausted and you need to kind of go inward and nourish yourself. It's really, really helpful. It can be nice to relax your whole system if you rub it on the bottom of your feet before going to bed at night, maybe after a bath or a shower or something like that. It is also very helpful, like the plantain, for cuts and scrapes and things like that. And its botanical name, Solidago, this is the Canada goldenrod, Solidago canadensis, but Solidago, the genus, means to knit together that which has been severed. So it helps to restore broken skin, but it also kind of helps to bring together like a sort of a broken, exhausted system. It is known traditionally as a kidney herb. And when there is kidney issues, there's generally a lot of exhaustion, and it really helps to just gently, deeply restore that. It can be drank as a tea, and actually goldenrod was the herb that was used as the Liberty tea in the Boston Tea Party story, where they threw the tea into the ocean and weren't going to drink the tea from far away. They drank goldenrod tea because the flavor of it tastes a little bit like black tea. It's actually quite a satisfying, astringent, tannin-rich flavor, as long as you don't steep it for more than like 5-7 minutes. After that, it'll get more bitter. But the bitterness of the herb, anything that has a bitter flavor, is going to help to support your digestive function. So it's also a really nice digestive herb. And people blame goldenrod on allergies. People think that their hay fever comes from goldenrod, or they basically call goldenrod and ragweed the same thing. They are not the same thing. They are cousins. The goldenrod cannot cause hay fever because the goldenrod is a pollinator attractor. It gets these showy yellow aromatic flowers that draw all the insects to it, and the pollen on its flowers is heavy and thick and resinous, and so it can't float out on the air to have us breathe it in. It stays here and the pollinators come to it. Ragweed, which I will point out in a moment for those who aren't familiar with it, when you see it, you'll recognize why everybody blames their allergies on the goldenrod, because it's so showy. You see the flowers, you notice it. It's not just random greenery, it's goldenrod. But the ragweed looks a lot more like random greenery. It's got little leaves and tiny little green flowers, not conspicuous at all, because it doesn't need to attract pollinators. It sends its pollen on the wind, and that's how it pollinates. So that's what we breathe in.